If you have ADHD like me, I'm going to just give you this random, unsolicited piece of advice. Don't go to Disneyland anytime soon.
Welcome to Amy Liz Harrison's podcast, Eternally Amy, a mum of eight's journey from jail to joy. A Gen Xer who overcame her struggle with alcohol to become a best-selling author and mental health advocate. She shares stories of hope and offers ideas for others struggling with mental health challenges, spirituality, ADHD, or maybe just family, travel, and logistics. One thing is for sure, you'll leave with something to chew on. And now, here's your host, Amy Liz Harrison, with your mystery meat sandwich.
Greetings, compadres. Okay, so for your mystery meat sandwich today, it is a quote by Louise Hay. And she said, "Remember, you have been criticizing yourself for years and it hasn't worked. Try approving yourself and see what happens." Well, I love this because I feel like masking ADHD is exhausting. At least I find it to be. And, we scramble around trying to make it look like we don't have it. And that can wreak havoc on our self-esteem. And the other thing that can wreak havoc is getting to the end of the day and feeling like you didn't get very much done. And I know that feeling all too well. So when I was home with babies and, breastfeeding infants and perhaps had a couple toddlers hanging around, maybe what I did that day was take a shower and maybe unload the dishwasher. And that was about it. And I remember fearing when Andrew came home that I'd have nothing to say when he asked me, "What did you do today?" And so I came to hate that question, which is really sad. I mean, I loved the gift of being able to stay home and I appreciated that. But, it's the hardest job. I would just stand by that. It's the hardest job. And in the midst of losing your identity, it can feel very overwhelming and like you're not doing anything. So then coupled with ADHD, that's like a recipe for disaster because it just really impacted my soul and it was difficult. So I think that internal dialogue, that internal narrative is just so vital. It's so important for those of us with ADHD and for moms, right? And so that's what I have to say is changing that internal narrative, trying to approve of myself. We need it. We can do it.
And now, onto the Chaplain's Chat.
And moving into the Chaplain's Chat, what I'm going to talk about today is 6 of my best tips. And I'm calling it for ADHD sorcery. So, October is apparently ADHD Awareness Month, but sidebar, here's what I don't get. Every single month is something different, but it's like 14 or 36 different things. And so part of me can't keep up. I know there are so many different causes and awareness opportunities that you can have almost every day. I mean, like a month ago, it was National Daughters Day, and then it was National Sons Day. And I kind of missed both of those, I think. And I just can't keep up. I don't know what to tell you. I can't keep up. Too many things. But that being said, ADHD Awareness Month, ADHD is kind of funny. It's one of those, being that I was diagnosed later in my life, it's one of those kind of funny things where I could have probably gone my whole life and never known that I had it, never been made aware of it. But then once you are diagnosed, you can't unsee it. And then, of course, I can see it in a couple of my family members, and it's got just really strong genetic ties. Again, hashtag not a professional, but this is just what I've learned from my psychiatrists. And so when I was diagnosed at age 40 and change, it was kind of an eye-opening thing because all of a sudden it felt like, oh, that's why. And, similarly, I felt the same way about my alcoholism. Once I started learning about the disease of alcoholism, that was like a turning point because when I realized it wasn't my fault that I had this allergy of the body, because sometimes I would just go off, for a night of drinking with my buddies and everything would be fine. I'd have one or two. And then other nights I'd be totally out of control. And it would be the weirdest thing. I just couldn't figure out what happened. Like it was seriously baffling to me why it was so all over the board. And I think that when I started learning more about ADHD, I had that very same experience, like this, kind of black and white TV suddenly was in color. And, it's helpful because the more that I learn about myself and what my, modalities are and my like structures that have been set up and my narratives that have been, part of me forever, it's empowering. It's empowering because I can't change or work on or accept what I don't know. And so every little piece about myself, self-awareness that I gain, it doesn't boomerang back in vain. It's always helpful to me. And so, okay, without further ado. Oh, and one more thing I want to say about early sobriety and that whole concept of, oh, I didn't get anything done today, as a young mother of infants and toddlers, is in early sobriety, they teach you to get up in the morning, and there's these sets of prayers that you say, or you don't have to do this. These are suggestions, right? Of things that can help you build routine back into your life, because as addicts and alcoholics, we're sort of way off routines by the time we roll into rehabs or 12-step programs. And so in early sobriety, they teach you to get up and, say your prayers, whatever set prayers or whatever your morning routine is, to do that. And then to make your bed, which, P.S., admittedly, I am terrible at. I do not like making my bed. And it's not that I don't like a made bed, but it's just, I don't know. I got all these pillows. I have a whole situation, right? And setting it up takes a lot of time. So if I'm going to set up that pillow situation every day or night, I guess, and then in the morning, tear it all down, it just feels like a lot of work. I don't know what to tell you. I guess as the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about, I'm just looking for the easier, softer way. But I'll tell you, there's something to be said for efficiency, right? And I love just pulling the comforter up over the pillows and calling it good. I don't know. Little life hack for you there, maybe. Or room for growth, your choice. So here it is, 6 of my best tips for ADHD sorcery. Or, if you prefer, increasing productivity with ADHD. All right, so this one is important because I'm here to confess that I've been totally off my morning routine. If I'm being totally honest, since probably pre-COVID. I haven't done it consistently since pre-COVID. And so there it is. The secret is out. You're only as sick as your secrets. So there you go. But for the past 2 weeks, I have restarted my morning routine. And I'm telling you, pun intended, it is like night and day, for real. And, I've got this new alarm clock situation. And this just cracks me up because my husband is so into this alarm clock too. And I did not think he would be. He's just kind of resistant to new things or, quote, new technologies, unquote, if you will. And so this is one of those alarm clocks that um, sort of simulates a circadian rhythm. So it's supposed to wake you up naturally. It's supposed to kind of, replicate what a sunrise would be. And then you can set these different modes on it so that it's, birds chirping pleasantly, like those Mary Poppins birds, when you wake up, or you can have a meditative flute wake you up, or, they got all these different options, right? And then you can set these patterns of the different, sunrise options. And one is called like Conquering Fuji or something like that. They're all very inspiring, just to inspire you to get out of bed. So that alarm has seriously made a huge difference. And then at night, they have all these different routines for nighttime too. So they have like Louisiana cicadas, that you can put on, or a campfire sound, which I think is a little disconcerting because it sort of sounds like maybe your house is on fire. So I don't love that one as much. But you also pick a bunch of different options and features to simulate, like the sun going down. I almost feel like when you've got a baby and you put a sound machine in their room and you're trying to teach them to sleep through the night. It's like almost what I feel like, but it's for adults. So there you go. Okay, so anyway, this is helping me to reestablish my morning routine, but it's actually not the first point that I want to make. It's all part of it. So the first point that I want to make, the first tip, if you will, is to start positive. Start with something positive. And I can tell you by I used to be super consistent, gang, like super consistent back in the day, pre-COVID. And, my trainer will tell you this is true. She would come to my house in the mornings and I'd be like floating around. I'd be super zen and calm. And she'd be like, what do you do in the mornings, And once she came up, I think this is when I had one of the newborns, and she came up to my room and she saw like all my candles lit as if I was like holding a seance, right? And my journal's out and all my little meditation books and cards and all this stuff. And she was like, okay, I get it now. Like, you have a really solid morning routine. And I did until COVID. So there you go. So anyway, restarting that has basically been a joy for me. It brings me joy. It really does. And, so I get up, right? Here's what it is, just so you know. I get up and first thing I do is I say upon awakening, which is a part of the big book that you may or may not hear people in 12-step programs talk about pages 86 through 88. And that's where this little piece of instruction is located. So it's called Upon Awakening. So I say that. And basically, what I do is I ask God to remove the bondage of self in my life. So me looking out for myself all the time, if I can kind of get myself out of the way, then God has a lot more space to do a lot more work, or at least work that I'm going to see, right? And so if I can do that, I'm off to a pretty good start. And then I kind of roll out of bed and I will do short yoga. And when I say short, not like short people, but like 10 minutes. Okay. And really my goal by this point, because I'll have a mantra that I say and I will a couple affirmations and all of that. But really what I'm saying that I'm trying to get to is something that I stole from Father Richard Rohr, who you all know is my boyfriend, Just kidding. He's not. I really like him, though. And it's kind of like I'm looking for a foundational yes. What I mean by that is a yes and. I think I wake up, they say in the rooms of AA and 12-step programs that you wake up with untreated alcoholism. And I completely think that that is true for me. Is I wake up with untreated alcoholism and I'm just, sort of instantly kind of negative. I can shift really quickly into all the things I have to do today and just feel stress rising before I even get out of the freaking bed. And so I'll judge things. Oh, geez, do I really have to do that? Do I really da? Like, I'll go on, I'll make all kinds of judgments and conclusions. But if I can get to that point of just accepting that my day is going to be my day and have it be kind of all inclusive, like a resort on a tropical island, just everything belongs, right? Everything that this day is about to bring belongs. So if I can get there and really feel that space of duality and go, vanishing. So, to the place where it's just a non-judgmental, non-dualistic way of looking at the world, boom, that's all I need. Like that's a good start for me. So then I do this quick yoga. It's on YouTube. And then I'm saying these kind of little mantras and affirmations. And then I go on. I know this is kind of nuts, but I have a 12-step meeting that meets on Zoom at 6:00. Yes, 6:00 a.m. And that is a 50 minute meeting. And it is like perfect for me. And okay, all right. When I said I didn't do diddly squat, basically, for a morning routine in COVID, that's actually not true because I did do this meeting pretty much 5 days a week, sometimes, less, but that was kind of a lot. Okay, so I'm going to give myself some credit there. But I jump on that meeting and then, the kids will start to come in by about 10 minutes to 7 when it ends. And it's perfect for me because I feel like, oh my gosh, look at me. I am crushing life. Like I've already done yoga, I've done prayer and meditation, probably a little bit of journaling during the meeting. But let me tell you what it doesn't look like anymore is during the pandemic, I was, kind of sitting there trying to catch up on some emails and all that sort of stuff. And I was totally distracted during the meeting. So these past 2 weeks, I've been very focused on like, don't open your computer. Like, don't check your phone. Just do. And I have an old school iPad, by the way, which I do this meeting on. And it's like an iPad from like 1972. Just kidding. They didn't make them back then. Anyway, that's what I use so that I don't have the temptation of jumping on the computer and getting a whole bunch of stuff done. All right. So there you go. So the bottom line is to start positive because I'll tell you, if I start negative, it just feels like that boulder being pushed up the hill just feels like this colossal, like I'm already stressed out and I've been awake for 10 minutes kind of thing. So it's been good is my bottom line. And I think I'm also saying it out loud so that I'm holding myself accountable. Okay, so number 2 is tiny chunks. I kind of want to sing Tiny Bubbles by Don Ho, but I'm not going to. Tiny chunks. So breaking up even small tasks for me is huge. Breaking them up into little tiny kind of bite-sized chunks, which sounds so lame, but I don't know how else to say it. But that is super helpful for me because, I don't know. I'm like a selfish kind of person by nature. I want props. In the 5 love languages, I am a words of affirmation girl, like all the way. So I need to feel good about myself. I need to feel like, I'm giving myself props. And it just kind of helps me because here's the thing, my normal state is to be very self-critical, it's to be negative, and you're not doing enough, you're not doing this very well, blah blah blah. And so the more positivity that I can pour into my life, the better, and the better outlook I can have of myself, and just reminding myself that I'm doing the best that I can with the tools that I have. It just all helps. And so writing books is a great example of this whole tiny chunks concept, because people will say a lot of times to me, well, how did you write a book? And how did you, now you're writing other books. And how did you do? Now you write 2 books and you got this, whatever. And it just happened through small chunks. I just learned that if I just chip away at it, I don't know, it's probably like, they say that you're supposed, in order to organize like your entire house over 6 months of time or whatever, some span of time, that you just start small, right? And you take like every room and you do like 1 drawer a day. Well, that shit works. Like, I'm here to tell you, it does work. And, there's a reason why these theories float around. And for me, it definitely works. And so, like, for example, instead of telling myself, you're going to sit down and write an entire chapter today, no, like if I had an idea or a concept or something that flew into my brain, what I would do, and let's say like I'm at, the school, or I'm driving or something, I'll just take a quick voice memo and then I'll loop back to that. But once it's out of my brain, it's gone. It's like in the cloud, never to be retrieved again. And so if I do that, that's helpful. I can retrieve it later. I can write that paragraph and then be done. Like, just be done for the day. That's all I expect myself to do in terms of writing. And then that's it. And here's the crazy thing. Like, that shit eventually turns into a book. I don't know. It's a little weird, but it does happen. But I guess, same thing with the 6-month, organizing your house theory, right? Eventually the house gets organized if you don't live with 9 other people. So breaking the task down into tiny tasks, subtasks, if you will, right? Oh, and P.S., here's a key for that, is giving myself a deadline, right? So I'll say like, hey, by noon, I'm going to do, 10 minutes of research on this topic that I've been thinking about including in the book, and I'm just going to see if it fits. Or, I'm going to write down that, hot dog story or whatever it is. So, all right, that brings us to number 3. Number 3 is use what works / customize. All right. I talk about customization a lot, so I'll try not to be super wordy here, but here's my example is, so I start writing these books and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm sure there's some amazing software out there that I need to get, and it's going to help me organize these chapters, and it's going to help me, get, I don't know, I guess be a little bit more grammatically correct. And then I can piece these parts together more easily, because I'm more like, when I write, my natural tendency is more like Little Women when she's in the attic and she's just writing and she's got papers everywhere. That's more me. But it's a little bit difficult. You can't really send that stuff to your editor super easily. Or I have a great editor, but I don't think she would appreciate that super well. So there comes a point I got to type it out. And so what I have found after lots of trial and error and little trial subscriptions of different softwares and services and whatnot, I think we should bring that word back, whatnot. Anyway, I just use the Notes app on my phone. And I'm not even kidding. This is how I compose books because I always have my phone with me. I can jump on my laptop. It's synced, right? And so I can write on my laptop and then it's going to show up later on my phone when I don't have my laptop. It's all there and it's easy and it doesn't take 7,000 steps, to go log in, and I don't need like the internet, to be like the Wi-Fi password and everything working all perfectly. I just bust out the notes and I can put everything in folders, right? So I can put every note in a folder and then, I can go in there and pretty easily retrieve all the things. So that works for me. But my point is, I tried to tell myself that this was a lame way of writing a book, okay? I tried to tell myself that this is, stupid and that people will laugh at me. They're all going to laugh at me. Does anybody remember that Adam Sandler? Yeah, I don't know. I was a weird high schooler. We listened to very off-color things. But I basically, who cares? Like I was basically thinking somebody was going to shame me for using my notes app. First of all, this is the first time I've ever even really talked about it, except for with my son. And so whatever, like who cares? It works for me. And so there you go. Can let go of the shame and just do what works, right? My dad is the king of this. His favorite way to kill grass. I know that's a very bizarre example, but there have been times in the Carlton's history where we have had no grass at all in our front yard because my dad has poured antifreeze all over it. And that is his tried and true custom way of killing grass and then rototilling it up and starting all over again. It's his method. All right, antifreeze. There you go. I mean, I've never tried it, but my dad swears by it. And you know what? It works for him. All right, Dad. You do you. That is what works for me is, just kind of working on getting over the shame that I should be using something fancier. And, next month I'll be in Vegas doing a memoir panel at the 20 Books to 50K conference. And guess what I'll bring for my notes? Just my phone. So I'll have my notes app. And there you go. All right. And so the next one for, ADHD, sorcery, wizardry, whatever you want to call it, is that I'm going to say like neurotypical folks, they're motivated in ways that don't always work for people with ADHD. At least that's what I have found, okay? And especially, once again, for me in the author world, it can be super lonely. And I know like a lot of people work from home now. And so you probably get that vibe too, sometimes you just sort of wonder. In fact, I literally was just talking to Matt about this like a few minutes ago. It was like, is there anybody out there? Like, am I, doing this for no reason? Is this, reaching anybody? You just get that very kind of like alone feeling, like I'm off in a cave somewhere with a candle and some parchment paper or making some like hieroglyphics and putting them on the wall. I don't know. And so, to be able to remind myself again with some daily affirmations is really helpful that like, you know what? All right. I get joy out of this. I am loving this. This is a way of self-expression. It's creativity for me. And it's kind of like if you are north of age 40 and you remember Stuart Smalley from SNL, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. I just, there's something to be said for that guy. I'm like, it's true. It's true. If you just kind of, for me at least, remind myself that, all right, I have purpose, especially now that I'm sober. I have purpose. I can, impact somebody's life in the way that they might hear one thing that they resonate with, and that's the goal, right? That is the goal. So, positive comments that will kind of bring me back if I'm starting to get to that like stage of nobody's here, kind of the Tom Hanks castaway, like I'm by myself and I'm going to grow a beard and like make a volleyball my friend. So that's always helpful to me. And the next one, ready? This is big for me. It is to over. So we're at like number five. Number five. Okay. So we're going to 6, and then I have a gift with purchase. So there you go. All right. So number 5 is overestimating time. This is important for me because I always think I can cram 75 billion things into a day. I can do that, but I can't do it very well. And then what ends up happening is I will get caught on a late trajectory. Something will happen. And then I'm constantly apologizing to the next person and then to the next person. And it just kind of spirals, and it is not fun because then my self-esteem suffers and I make it about me, and it's not good. It's not good. I'll get all wrapped up in self. And so you know what works better for me is calendar blocking some extra time in there. Now, of course, they're going to be like the one-off things, like a kid forgets a lunch, a kid, whatever, does this, something else happens. The house catches on fire. You need to attend to something. And of course, that's, kind of those caveats, right? But generally speaking, it takes me a lot longer to do something than I think it should take. Quote unquote should. And okay, so a perfect example for this would be, quote, running to school for a meeting. So I'm PTA president again. And this is kind of, we call it the Viking Parent Group, VPG, because that's our mascot. So I'll run to school for a meeting, right? And then 4 hours later, I make it home. No, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not by much, because what happens is, right, you go to school or your place of business or whatever, intending to just, grab your computer charger or drop off some snacks in the teacher's lounge or whatever it is. And then you bump into this person and then you're engaged in a conversation, right? And then you remember there's something else that you need to do, and that person needs to do that too. So then you go over to see the registrar and, blah, blah, blah. And then you're doing this and then that one. So this is typical for me for sure, since I have ADHD, but I forget that all of that stuff takes time. And so I will be totally, sidetracked. And yeah, I'll get stuff done for sure. But I need to remember that I need to account for that time. And then it's very helpful. If I plan a meeting at school for 2:00 in the afternoon, it's great because I have a deadline. The kids are all home from school at 3:15. It gives me enough time that, and that's a great example for school too, because everybody else knows what time school ends too. So kind of everyone's on that same deadline. That is what helps me, is to really remember, okay, this, that, and the other thing are going to take a long time, longer than I think. So number 6 is should less days. Okay, so should, SHOULD, shouldless ways and days, actually, because I don't know, it's my opinion that the word should not be a part of my vocabulary, and I still catch myself saying it. I just said it, like in number 5. But I think it is super important. I know it's super important for me to schedule those days into my life every now and again. In fact, I will literally put in my calendar, probably about once a month in all caps, don't schedule anything, okay? Rest day. And so it's a way that I'm trying to honor myself and the fact that I need to build rest into my schedule because I won't do it otherwise. And, it doesn't necessarily mean like, I'm not going to do anything. I might go out to coffee with a friend, or I might, have like a think day for a book or whatever it is. Sometimes I go and I pick up one of the kids and I'll go spend time with them. We'll go to lunch or we'll go do some activity, just to get a little bit of one-on-one time with them. So I will do like a little something, but I'm telling myself that I'm not allowed to, quote, not allowed to, unquote, schedule other things. And it's helpful, but I have to plan it. I have to be intentional, right? So here's the bonus gift, the gift with purchase. If you have ADHD like me, I'm going to just give you this random, unsolicited piece of advice. Don't go to Disneyland anytime soon. And Disney, I love you. I think you're wonderful. But ever since, Disneyland has reopened, we're West Coasters, right? So that's kind of where we go, Disneyland. And that's where I went as a kid growing up in California. And ever since reopening after COVID, it's been a fascinating nightmare to go to Disneyland. I'll just say it that way. It starts with reserving days to go to the park. You can't just roll up. Like, you can't roll up and go to Disneyland anymore. Like, that's a thing of the past. And I'm telling you this, you're welcome. Public service announcement. You got to go on the line, right? And schedule your day, schedule your 2 days. If you're doing this park hopper BS, thing that they've had around for quite some time, but you got to reserve it. Okay. You got to reserve that shit. And then when you get there, now, thank God. So I just got back, of course, which is why this is like a hot topic for me. And thankfully, I was with one of my older daughters and then one of my younger daughters and my younger daughter's friend and her mom. And we've been doing this for a long time together, like since the girls were young. And so my friend is like one of those, I'm going to call it like a Diz expert. She's like into it, right? She's a fan. She reads all the blogs. She follows all the Instagram accounts. So she's pretty dialed in. And I'm here to tell you, if she had not been with me, like, forget about it. I literally would have just pulled the pin and gone back to the hotel and like jumped in the swimming pool and ordered a bunch of room service and said, F it. Because it was so complicated. I mean, you need a PhD to go to Disneyland these days. I'm just telling you. They have this Genie Pass thing, but the Genie Pass thing is expensive, and it's already expensive to get into Disneyland. And P.S., the prices are taking another hike in January, according to my friend who knows all things Disney. And so then these Genie Passes, which you've paid for, these supposedly get you to the front of the line for certain rides. Oh, but P.S., fine print is there are tiers of different rides. So, for example, the Indiana Jones ride is like a top tier attraction. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means that, your ass gots to schlep back there later in the day, or the Genie Pass doesn't work on that, because I'm here to tell you, by the point when we had just totally been overwhelmed by all these details, at least I was totally overwhelmed, I just checked out and I just became the goose and let Maverick just take charge. And she just worked it all out. And so that was the right move, by the way, because I think I would have gone postal on, the cast member, and it would have been totally inappropriate. So she figured it out. But here's the deal. She had to literally negotiate every single time we went on a ride. It was like she'd go up, she'd talk to the cast member. There was this conversation. There, were apps out, and there was scanning things. And I mean, no, forget about it. I can't, dude. I can't. Here's what else I can't do is, literally we were on the phones the entire frickin' day. And you kind of go to Disneyland to be with the people that you came with, right? And literally everybody is walking around. And P.S., it's super crowded. So if they're going to try and say that the reservation system is to, make it so that there are fewer crowds, it's BS. It's not true. There were lines for everything. There's lines for churros, lines for the bathrooms, lines for the lines for all these things. It was ridiculous. It was as if it was free to get in there. And trust me, it wasn't free. And so here we are. Everybody's walking around, bumping shoulder to shoulder, staring at their phones. And you know what? I'm not here for it. I'm just not here for it. And I think I'm done with Disneyland, with the exception of the plaids. If you have had the experience of having a Disneyland guide, the plaids is what they're called. Unfortunately, that kind of ruins you because it really puts a spotlight on how broken the rest of the, system for the regular population. And P.S., that includes these people like myself who paid for these genie passes. It's just, you can't do anything anymore easily unless you're super in the know or if you have a plaid. And I can tell you that ain't cheap, but worth it. And so maybe that's what's happening, Disney. Maybe you're just driving everybody to use the plaids, at least those of us with ADHD. I don't know. I love you, but this ain't working great. I'm here to tell you the customer experience is at an all-time low. So there you go. You are welcome for that.
Finally, here's your bailout bag.
For the bailout bag, sometimes, despite using these tools and hacks and tips and tricks, sometimes I just frickin' melt down. And that's what happened to me at Disneyland. At the happiest place on earth, I melted down. And you know what? When I stood back and looked at it, I thought, what is underneath this bad mood? I didn't do anything like crazy. I didn't show anybody necessarily that I was in a bad mood, but the thing about it was I just felt yucky. And so I tried to get to the root of that feeling. And I realized the root of the feeling was I was sad. It was just sadness. That as a child, the experience was totally different. We didn't have any of this BS and phones and craziness. And, there were things that we didn't have. We didn't have these accesses to fast passes type, situations. And, as a kid, of course, your perspective is totally different because you ain't doing any of the work. You get to have all the fun. And so I'm hoping that's what our daughters had, was the benefit of having a lot of fun. But all this to say, okay, so I kind of had an internal meltdown. I got to the root of what was bothering me. I felt sad. And really, what I had to do in that moment was just tell myself, it's okay. It's okay that you feel sad. It's fine. And I got the chance to sort of play the movie all the way through to the end. and get to think about, how do I want to feel tonight when I put my head down on the pillow? I just want to feel proud of the fact that, I'm not reacting on this feeling of sadness and taking it out on other people, or, saying something I shouldn't say to some poor cast member, who's like, look, I'm just trying to get you guys on Space Mountain. Can you just not? I don't need your lectures about what you think of Disney right now. Like, thanks, but no thanks, And if I think that through and play that movie all the way to the end, I'm in a much better position to ask God to help me control my reaction in the moment. Because then I can bitch about it later on the podcast. Just kidding. But, I do far less damage in my life that way. And I am grateful for that. Thanks for listening, you guys. Be kind, rewind, take what you like, and leave the rest behind.
Thank you so much for listening to Eternally Amy. Amy Liz Harrison is a best-selling author, speaker, 12-step coach, meditation teacher, and recovery advocate. To find out more, please visit amylizharrison.com. Keep up with Amy on all platforms by following @AmyLizHarrison. Please subscribe and review this podcast. It means so much to us if you do.